Hello. I first like to thank the organizers for setting up this memorial for Timothy Ray Brown and for inviting me to say a few words about my dear friend. So, Timothy, or Tim, or as a lot of people know him as the Berlin patient, was a good friend, and he was a huge resource of courage and determination for many people in this field. He was an advocate for the community, but he was also an advocate for scientists. He loved young investigators and loved sharing his story and hearing people's stories. And that's what I want us to all remember Timothy as not just the Berlin patient, not just the man who was cured of HIV, but really a heroic story of somebody who was thrown into the limelight without asking for it and who made the most of it by trying to help others. Timothy literally gave his body to science. He had, even when he could have walked away after, being cured, he still had multiple lymph node biopsies, gut biopsies, brain biopsies, numerous amounts of blood donations to try to help science. We all have used his name in some way, shape, or form, especially those of us who've worked with HIV cure. His name has been used more than probably deserved, and he probably deserved a lot more for the amount his name was used, as we all wanted to inspire hope looking forward, and that's why he always allowed it. So Timothy didn't ask for this. He was placed kind of accidentally in the spotlight, but he really embraced it. And part of the reason he did is because he was such an amazing, gentle person. So a lot of things that people don't realize is that Timothy is one of the sweetest, kindest, also a little fun-loving, we'll say, but he really truly cared about people, and not just science, but actual people. It was always an honor for me that I got to introduce all of my trainees to him and have them learn his story, and he would sit there and listen to their stories and tell them to keep up the good fight and keep working. He was really just a magical, amazing person. And I think the best way we can honor him is that we need to remember his legacy and remember that there's a face behind HIV. I think it's very easy for scientists often to get so bogged down in the lab and you forget that there's people out there that are suffering every single day and hoping and praying for a cure. And Timothy really symbolized that, but we need to keep this going and we need to remember that there is a face behind this disease. And I know he would want us to keep remembering that and always remember that there's a face behind it and it's his, and his legacy will always live on. But there's also a whole other group of HIV infected people and uninfected people where HIV has impacted their life. There's an amazing community resource, and I think every scientist and clinician should really try to think about Timothy and reach out and work more with the community and listen to the community. And I think that's the way we could best honor Timothy. But Timothy was amazing. It was an honor, a huge honor in my life that I was able to know him. And for those of you who were lucky enough to meet him, I know that you will always remember him. And for those of you who weren't, just know that he was a wonderful man and honor his memory by, again, keeping engaged, keeping up the hard fight, and hopefully we can cure this for everybody someday. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much to the co-chairs. It's an honor to be here today to help remember Timothy Ray Brown. As I said, my name is Erick Seelbach, and I'm the Executive Director of the Pierce County AIDS Foundation in Tacoma, Washington. I'm also known as Sister Below Your Own Way of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the Abbey of St. Joan. When I think about remembering Timothy, two things come to mind. The one is Timothy as a symbol for all of us, and the other is Timothy as a person. And I think, those two overlap a little bit, but they're also a little bit separate. So to speak to the symbolism of Timothy first, I remember several years ago when we brought Timothy to Seattle for a number of different events. We were prepping for community events and meetings with all sorts of people. And one of my colleagues who had worked in HIV for many, many, many years asked me one day, "Why are you so excited about this? Why are you just jumping out of your chair to prepare these events and bring him here?" And I thought about it and I realized that for me, what Timothy represented was hope. Hope that we hadn't been allowed to have. Coming out as a teenager into the early days of the AIDS epidemic, cure wasn't something we were allowed to think about or hope for. Uh, the epidemic was impacting us in such great ways, and then suddenly now here's Timothy, who had been cured, who had been then named, and then I was going to get to meet him. And in fact, I had the pleasure of hanging out with him during that time and driving him around to various events. And so for me, the having someone sitting next to me in my car and driving around and talking as somebody who was cured of HIV was really sort of that representative of hope and possibility. And I know lots of people around the world put meaning onto Timothy and add symbolism. And what's really amazing is he accepted it with grace, with compassion, his spirit of um, always saying, I don't want to be the only one in this exclusive club. I don't want to be the only one. He just sort of sat in the center of all that symbolism that was heaped on to him and just accepted it with that grace and smile. Which sort of leads me to the personal, like he was a real person, a human being. He had his joys and his faults and his shadows and his brightness. And he was just fun to be around. He's smiling and silly and sassy and flirty, and just fun. And so, I can't imagine being a member of that exclusive club and the only one for so long, and just still rolling around and accepting it and talking to everybody. Everybody wanted his attention, and he was just very, very graceful and a loving, kind presence. And I just think having him as that first ambassador for cure really helps both us as individuals in hoping for the future, and all of us as we sort of collectively move towards having a cure. I had the honor of sainting Timothy as part of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. So as an organization, we saint people who provide incredible community service, and Timothy certainly was worthy of that sainthood. And so it was just one of the great pleasures to be able to saint him on his visits to Seattle. So Timothy, wherever you are now, we all love you so much, and thank you for your tireless service on behalf of HIV Cure. Thank you.